Have you ever been told that you aren't promotable, or just keep doing this thing and we'll talk about promotion at the next cycle, only for nothing to happen? I want you to know you are not alone. It's happened to me. It has happened to hundreds of the women I've coached. The truth is, being awesome at your job is not enough to get recognized for a promotion. In fact, sometimes, oddly, the better you are at your job, the less your boss notices you. The good news is that we can communicate that you should be promoted, and it's all about shining in the right way. So let's dig into how to unlock your value and get you your next leadership position. Let's start by looking at the criteria for promotions and how these are often communicated or not communicated by management. You've probably heard feedback like, just keep doing what you're doing, or take on more projects to stand out. Maybe you've been giving something a bit more specific. These lines should sound supportive, but they can leave you in this cycle of doing more without getting closer to that promotion. Why does that happen? Because the criteria for promotion are often unclear and often change without notice. This includes in companies where they have great career ladders. HR is fundamentally pushing managers to this is the clarity you need to give. But how it's rolled out depends on your boss. So just because it looks like there's a good career progression ladder on the top level doesn't mean it's actually rolling down to you. And this is so frustrating. There's a never-ending loop where we're taking on more work, stretching ourselves further, only to find that the expectations have shifted once again. A big part of this frustration comes from vague feedback that doesn't guide you towards measurable outcomes. If you've ever heard statements like, you need to do more of this, or take on this project to show your capability in this area, you know what I'm talking about. Or perhaps work on your relationships with product or engineering. Instructions like these lack specificity, which means they're nearly impossible to track or evaluate effectively. When the feedback you receive is open-ended, it becomes almost impossible to gauge if you're hitting the mark or making progress. And a boss that's got budget constraints will use this to say, next time, or you just now need to do this. That's not quite what I meant. Anything like that, they're able to shift the nature of the parameters around you. One day you're told to focus on more projects. The next it's, you're doing too much of that. Where are your interpersonal skills? Where's your executive presence? Moving targets are exhausting and draining, especially if it's around evolving expectations. You need to be having regular, clear conversations, because otherwise you fall into the trap of feeling lost, unsure of your next steps, frustrated, burnt out at the lack of progression. Because remember, if you've been promised something and it's just not turning up, then honestly, that is a form of stress that leads to burnout. Remember, that's all that burnout is excessive continual stress. And if you've got these shifting goalposts, that's exactly where this leads. I was talking to one of my clients just this week about this. She has been promised for 18 months since she started her company that she would get a promotion. Her responsibilities have quadrupled in the 18 months. Her boss has now been promoted, opening up a path to her promotion. And yet the company's like, well, once we're through the next 6 months. And it's been like that for 18 months. And it's time to put some stakes in the ground. If you're feeling like your promotion is just out of reach, but it's been getting that way for a long time, it's easy to feel that your hard work isn't getting you closer to your goal. Without regular, actionable feedback, the situation is just going to get more stressful. Performance reviews, we know, can all be painful surprises. So you need to have this dialogue all the time. How many times have you walked into a review feeling confident, only to be met with unexpected criticism or new requirements that hadn't been shared with you before? Hate to break it to you, but part of that is on you. Sure, an ideal boss offers you guidance along the way, but you also have to be proactive. Regularly seeking feedback can help you course correct before it's too late. Own this piece. Do not wait for your boss to bring it up, however uncomfortable it is for you, so that when you get to that promotion cycle, there are no unexpected twists. So where do you go from there? The truth is, you've got to figure out the promotion criteria, even if your boss hasn't figured it out. To take control of your career trajectory, you'll need to focus on 3 essential elements that can give you a competitive edge. Firstly, visibility. The right people need to know you and what you bring to the table, especially if you're going for a leadership role. Secondly, your strategic influence. You need to align your work with the company's goals and make sure that you are part of key decisions, which requires visibility as well, by the way. And finally and thirdly, networking. You need to have the relationships with the people who can advocate for your promotion when the time comes and you're not in the room, because you won't be in the room when somebody's deciding whether to promote you or not. It's not just your boss. They're possibly deciding between 10 different people. If your boss is the only one advocating for you, you're not going to get a promotion. So we need other people to advocate for you as well, because you're not in the room. To move up in your career, the ability to advocate for yourself is essential, especially when promotion criteria isn't clear or if that feedback is continuously vague. It doesn't mean being boastful. It's about highlighting your contributions in a way that keeps your work visible. So that visibility piece, right? Visible and aligned with your career goals, not just the business goals, but your career goals. You want to share your achievements. You want to request specific feedback on what you've done. Have proactive conversations about your growth with others, not just your boss, that can set the stage for long-term success and ultimately your next promotion. Just this morning, having a conversation with a lady I've been working with for 6 months. She started in a new job 3 months ago. So we, first of all, did some job hunting. She's just come to the end of her first 90 days. She was hired as a colleague in a sales team with the goal of becoming head of sales. She reports into a CRO. She has spent the first 90 days setting the expectation of she is head of sales material. They didn't want to hire somebody into that role. They wanted a flat organization. But she knows, because of the stage that they're up as a startup, within 12 months, they are going to need a head of sales. And so she's been having proactive conversations with her boss, with the CEO, with her colleagues that demonstrate she is head of sales material, even though she doesn't have the job title yet. So you have to be proactive in these conversations. Set the stage for this is who you are for that next level. And regularly share your achievements. Provide updates to not just your boss, but key stakeholders that keeps you top of mind. This is where so many of us fall down. We're so good at our jobs. We keep our head down. We think, my accomplishments speak for themselves. I don't need to say anything. Here's the thing that happens. When you are good at your job, your boss doesn't need to worry about you. So you are ignorable, right? You've got to be visible, but not a source of discomfort for your boss. You need to highlight what you've done so they are very, very aware of how great you are and how you make their lives easier, even though you just are otherwise ignorable because you make their life better. Simple updates make a huge difference. For instance, say something like, I wanted to update on the progress of Project X. We've reached specific milestone, which positions us well for the next phase. This updates your manager that you're not just working hard, but also strategically contributing to the company's goals. So make sure your updates make your boss's life better. If you can demonstrate very quickly, succinctly, I've done this, which contributes to the thing that's keeping you awake at night, you are going to be in a different world when it comes to notice. You want to be documenting this every single week so that when promotion discussions come up, you've got a summary of all the achievements you've had, the tangible impact of your work, and how it impacts the business bottom line. And again, I know I talk about this all the time, but a huge part of executive communication is tying what you do to the business. That is the level change I see most of us struggle with. We focus on the stuff down here because that's what we've done our entire careers. But to be a great leader, you need to go from delivering this product to delivering revenue, right? You need to start talking differently. So that is the key thing to be highlighting in these achievements as you create this summary log for what you're doing. You need to be showing a notable increase in revenue in some way, even if you're very far removed from the revenue stream. How does the thing you're doing impact the business bottom line? Try saying something like, here's a brief list of the outcomes from the initiatives I've led this quarter, showing a notable increase in efficiency and team satisfaction. Efficiency and team satisfaction are a good way of starting to show you're impacting the business bottom line. It keeps a record of your performance, but it also keeps you in a strong position when it's time to discuss your next steps. Seeking feedback is another crucial part of self-advocacy. Rather than waiting for input, you need to take the initiative and ask specific questions. That's the key thing, specific. The specific can be a little bit uncomfortable because you're asking for somebody to poke at what you didn't do great, but this is how you make a difference. For example, if you have just done a client presentation, ask, I would appreciate your feedback on how I handled the client presentation. Do you think the approach aligned well with our goals? Right? That's the key thing there in terms of alignment. What overall did it succeed? But then you're going to ask, what could I improve for next time? That shows you're open to growth as well. Because you want to get recognition for what you achieved and demonstrate open to growth. It's not sufficient to do one or the other. And I think a lot of the time we shy away from feedback because it's very much negative focused. How can I improve is pointing at the things you can do. We can always improve. You want to ask a question in such a way that it allows your boss to understand how you've done good already while demonstrating you're open to growth. When you target questions to understand how your work is perceived, you can get concrete areas to work on. Also, directly asking about promotion criteria can give that clarity on what's required to advance. You might say, could we discuss what specific results or improvements you would need to see to support my case for promotion in the next cycle? Get specific. Then if one of them is, you need to improve your client relationships, you then start asking specific questions on, well, what does that look like? What would success look like? You need specificity. Demonstrate you're taking ownership of your career path because at this point in your career as a leader, it's not on your boss, it is on you, right? Let's talk about another example. I was working with this lady not that long ago. Let's call her Clara. I do change names from time to time here just to protect people. She came to me because she was stuck. Told she wasn't promotable. This is very familiar because I've been told that as well. But the feedback she received was too vague. So what we started with was scheduling bi-weekly check-ins with her boss. So she'd have weekly calls, but bi-weekly, she would discuss her ongoing work and ask for additional responsibilities. We were very specific about what kind of additional responsibilities she was asking for because she would focus on what was going to make the difference in terms of promotion. During the meeting, she would give factual, impact-focused updates, explaining her recent project's streamlined processes. One of the things she did was reduce turnaround time by 30% with one of the projects she was working with and boosting team productivity. So she gives specifics. She started measuring stuff and got specific and then sharing it with her boss. Her approach wasn't about self-promotion for the sake of it. It was about showing how her work was benefiting the team and therefore the company. This let her avoid the discomfort of feeling like she was boasting, which I had so many women that come to me like, self-promotion is horrible. I don't like talking about my achievements. I feel like I'm boasting. I feel like I'm just putting my hand up for the sake of it. But when we get specific about our team, it becomes easier because it's not so much about us. It also opened opportunities for her to improve the discussion around her promotion. She could ask, what went well? What could be learned? What could I be doing differently next time? And then she'd ask for specific feedback, moving from the simple good job, which is so classic. We've had that, so many of us have had, good job, good job, good job. You're unpromotable. And you're thinking, yeah, what? You've just been telling me for 6 months when I asked for feedback, I'm doing great. But when we turn that around, then this is something that Clara did. She'd say, I appreciate the positive feedback on my recent project. Could you specify what particularly stood out and where you see room for further development? Particularly stood out says, give me specifics on what you think was going well. And she'd write that down so it's ready for her review time. And her boss has had to think of it. So they're seeing something. So it changes the mindset of the boss here. And then specifically asking, where do you see room for further development? Says, I'm here to grow. Good job is not sufficient. This is the frustrating thing to me. We're told we're doing a good job and then we're told we're not promotable. And you're thinking, so what should I be doing then? You have to own this. You have to get specific. And by the way, this approach paid off so much for Clara. She was able to keep those achievements visible. Her boss changed his perception. So she went from being unpromotable to a roadmap for future growth. Regular dialogue on her achievements, keeping them in the spotlight. Specific feedback that meant her boss started using this specificity with all of his direct reports. But because she was so proactive, she had this power of self-advocacy. Others started seeing her readiness for promotion because she was always growing, always initiating feedback conversations, and consistently updating on her boss on her achievements. And she moved from not promotable to having a defined path for advancement. And just back in September, she received the promotion call. When we build strategic relationships, it's a powerful step in advancing our careers, especially when it comes to self-advocacy. By connecting with the key influencers and decision makers, you gain a network that not only amplifies your accomplishments, but also provides you with that valuable guidance to align your efforts with the organization's larger goals. So we want to cultivate relationships that take us to that next level, but this takes intentionality. The reward is that broader platform for your contributions and a stronger path to growth. People have to see how great you are. If you just hide behind your boss, people aren't seeing that. You need to build strategic relationships that enhance your visibility. People think, I want to work with her because she makes my life better and lifts us up as a business. This is not about competing. This is about lifting everybody up around you and making sure they acknowledge that that's what you're doing. I think sometimes we lift people up, but don't take credit for it. People just ignore us. You need allies within the company that advocate for your skills and achievements, giving you contributions, more reach than you'd have by yourself. You need people around you who know your value within the organization. So they see your successes, they acknowledge you beyond your immediate team, and they say, hey, she needs a promotion. Next time they're in the room and you're not. When these relationships open doors, they open doors to things that otherwise are not accessible. Your colleagues have influence. They have different perspectives. They know about the company priorities, and they can advocate for you even when you're not there. That means you're more likely to get high impact projects. You're more likely to take on stuff that's aligned with your goals. You're more likely to elevate your role. This is not just about promotion. This is about taking on things that align with where you want to go in your career. So I want you to start by identifying the key people in your organization who can support your advancement. They might be decision makers, influential colleagues, peers, mentors. All these people can endorse you in such a way that it could be pivotal. I'm a huge believer in having mentors in your company. Now, mentorship, I think, has been overdone for women. There is growing evidence that women are over-mentored, under-advocated for, but over-mentored, right? And what we need to do is shift that. But here's the thing. If you are aligning yourself with senior leaders in an organization, mentors, and I put that in air quotes, can be very powerful because they actually are probably going to act more responsive because they're going to be 2 times more to actually mentor you. But by having a mentoring type relationship where you meet them once a quarter, update them on what you've been doing and where you're stuck and what you've achieved since you last spoke, they're going to start seeing somebody who's proactive, taking advice on and growing. And suddenly they become your sponsor when you're not in the room because they have a vested interest in your success precisely because there's a relationship there. So a great approach is to engage with them to initiate this informational meeting. Start by having just a virtual coffee chat if they're not in the office. Maybe you start with a simple message such as, I recently noticed that you are on Project X that had a significant impact. Could we schedule a time for me to learn more about your approach there? Open that productive dialogue. Think about how you might add value to their work, whether by sharing relevant insights or introducing them to resources. For example, I read this article you wrote on LinkedIn. I didn't know you were even writing on that. You might also be interested in this thing that I wrote, and I'll send it over, right? Once you've established that connection, you want to keep the relationship active, but also genuine. Share occasional updates. If you can, schedule a regular, maybe quarterly conversation. See what's going on. See what they've been doing. Share what you've been doing. Get specific, by the way. Keep them informed and make sure that you are helping them as much as they're helping you. So, for example, mentioning after a conversation, I remember you mentioned a challenge with this thing. I came across this tool that might help you, right? Give back as much as you take, even if they're in a more senior position to you, so that you're invested in the relationship's mutual benefit. This is well beyond traditional networking. This is about creating partnerships in your company that reinforce growth. You're going to be intentional. Connect with those influencers in your company. Engage with them meaningfully. Sustain your relationship through giving back. And then when it comes time, you're going to have multiple people who believe in your reputation and are prepared to advocate for you. This is my approach to replacing the all boys network. The all boys network does this for men automatically, but this is how we get our way in without being invited. We're solidifying our career visibility and growth by having regular conversations with key stakeholders, key influencers, in a way that is going to set you apart from someone else who is just not visible. You're going to make yourself indispensable to the company and indispensable to these individuals. It positions you to stay ahead. And particularly when you're a fast-paced company, by having these conversations, you're going to know more about what's going on, the constantly evolving set of requirements, aligning your skill set with the changes of initiatives and developments in a company. Decision makers take note of individuals who prioritize learning, right? Because most of the time, what you know when you come into a company is not the thing they're going to need in 6 months' time. And so what you want to be demonstrating is that you are always learning, that you're benefiting from that and the company's benefiting from that. Each new skill you acquire, every project you take on, you want to showcase it with all of these influences. Reinforce your visibility, especially when it comes to leading things and getting them over the line or addressing gaps within the company. This not only highlights your capabilities, places you in the line of sight of those who influence advancement. It says, I'm primed, I'm capable, I'm ready. And that's what we want. If you're to fully leverage this approach, I like to do something called your skills gap analysis. We do a gap analysis with all of our leadership coaching. If you've come in and you are aiming to up level, we need to understand where you need to grow, right? Regularly review job trends. What is it that people establishing the role you want next are most valued for in terms of skills? It could be anything from advanced data analysis to people management. Like, go and figure it out. And remember, by most valued, I mean the top 50% of the skills that are listed, because you don't need everything to land the job. If you can do everything, you need to be going for the next level up. Once you've identified these areas, you want to seek out visible projects that allow you to put these skills into action. Volunteer for things that add these capabilities, that put you into high visibility projects that will enhance your skills and put you under the attention of the leadership. This showcases your growth and reinforces your dedication to the company's goals while demonstrating your path to advancement. Once you've got that skill enhancement in place, you need to make sure it's visible. Feedback isn't just about refining your work. It's an opportunity to align more closely with the organization, your leadership's vision. But you need to actively seek and utilize feedback to demonstrate your commitment to professional growth. So you are signaling you're adaptable, you're reflective, you're eager to improve, and you care about the company's success. You want to take the initiative here. Seek feedback in an impactful way that goes beyond waiting for formal reviews. You can request that constructive input every opportunity you have after presentations, projects, meetings. Yes, do it with your boss, but do it beyond that. Show that you are proactive in seeking feedback and acting on it. You're responsive to your guidance. There is no point in requesting feedback if you don't do anything with it. You need to implement suggestions, follow up with the people who provided it, and signal that their input is valued and integrated into your work. This reinforces your dedication to excellence, cultivates that reputation as somebody committed and responsive. Now, of course, effectively leveraging feedback also means confronting common pitfalls that can undermine your visibility and impact. So, for instance, especially among women, we tend to downplay our achievements, right? We attribute our success to external factors. This is one of those habits that is going to hold you back. It is going to stop people perceiving your contributions as what they are, and it limits your opportunities. Now, a great boss will call that out, but the further up you go, the less time and energy your boss has for that. The other common pitfall is staying silent in meetings or strategic discussions with senior leaders, missing opportunities to share your insights and your accomplishments. Some of the people I work with, this is very, very common, fear that advocating for themselves could come off as boastful, and it deters us from speaking. Or we've told ourselves, I get ahead by staying quiet. A client of mine came to me, I think she's been working with me for just over a year now. She was getting feedback in her quarterly reviews that she was overly self-critical. And it took a really open-minded boss for her to get this feedback. But it meant she was getting mediocre ratings despite being an essential contributor. She actually had just been promoted, so they clearly saw something in her. But they were saying, you're now on the ELT. You need to be speaking up. You're responsible for this entire section of this multi-billion dollar business. You need to speak up. That's why we promoted you. What we had to do was give her a toolkit to present her achievements and present her highlights and insights with confidence and clarity without coming across as all icky. When we made this shift, it led to top ratings, a further promotion, a bonus pay rise that I think it doubled her bonus last year. And ultimately, in the long run, it's led to a tripling of her income. I'm not kidding. This is huge, really huge. This woman changed everything simply by showing up to ELT meetings, executive leadership team meetings, differently. Overcoming this fear of speaking up begins with reframing what self-advocacy is. It's a necessity, not about self-promotion. It's necessary. If you aren't doing it, you're letting the company down. The company needs to hear your ideas. You're an expert. If you don't speak up, the company loses out. But to do that, you need to make it clear that you are valuable, that you have impact, that you should be heard. If you're not doing that, you're just doing a disservice to the company because people aren't going to listen to your great ideas. You need to be able to articulate the contributions of you and your team in lower stakes situations so that you have that reputation in the higher stakes situations. You can frame everything as context with your team. It's about your team as much as it's about yourself. That shows humility and respect for teamwork, which is great. And although this is really daunting, it really leads to great strategic allies, support and input for feedback. And you are going to have that visibility that is going to make all the difference, both in terms of your promotion prospects, but also, as I've just been talking about with this particular client of mine, in terms of your ability to influence the company. And that, at the end of the day, is why we're leaders, right? So I want to give you, to wrap up, a step-by-step guide to help you start advocating for yourself effectively and incrementally, because I know this is so daunting, right? Picture yourself not scared of self-advocacy. Picture yourself as somebody who has a log of her achievements with everything tracked, ticked off, ready to go into your one-on-one, talk about what you're doing, and getting positive feedback as a result. So here's what I want you to be doing. First of all, number one, document. Have a personal log. I'm a big fan of a spreadsheet that every week you add something to, even if it's small, key details and quantifiable results about what you've achieved that week, right? Some weeks it'll be something huge. It's taking you 6 months to get there. Other weeks it's going to not be very much, but write it down anyway. It will be useful. And put it on a personal machine, not your work machine, because it is something you're going to take with you for the rest of your career, right? Number two, refine your self-advocacy skills. Remember that this is about clarifying your impact. It's not boasting. If you have some self-doubt, work on reframing that inner dialogue to recognize the genuine value you bring to the company. Number three, enhance your skill set. Look for opportunities to develop skills. Remember that gap analysis. Get that gap analysis in place and then understand what you could be doing, what projects you could be taking on to fill those gaps. Number four, identify key stakeholders and influencers, the people who make those influential decisions. Make sure you're in front of them. You share your achievements, your ideas, you get feedback, and demonstrate that you're implementing their feedback and the gains you've made as a result. Number five, speak up. Maybe speak up starting small. Start speaking up in one-on-ones and then gradually work up to be more visible in broader discussions. If you aren't speaking up, you're doing a disservice to the company. Tell yourself this. It's so important. Strengthen your confidence by speaking up and realizing nothing bad happened. And then finally, step 6. Remember, progress is incremental. If this all feels new and horrible to you, remember consistent steps can build real momentum. You don't have to do this alone as well. Having a coach like me to hold your hand through this, developing an approach that fits your style is absolutely fine. But progress can be small and steady because that always wins the race. If you're ready to start this journey, have a conversation with me. I would love to give you a complimentary strategy session to put together your clear, personalized plan to get value recognized and get you on track for the next promotion. As always, remember, stay in your tech leadership game and follow your dreams because the world really does need that uniqueness that you bring as a leading woman in tech.